A few years ago, I had an experience that will stay with me, always. It has made me question so many things. The existence of any or all sorts of creatures. Anything that was meant to be a legend, I am now willing to bet exist, or has existed to a degree. I had been homeless for some time when it happened, but don't let it fool you into thinking I was drunk or a junkie. I might have been cold and dirty, and oftentimes hungry, but I never drank or took drugs. What I saw was legit. I had been sleeping in the woods. It's quite surprising how many little hiding spots there are in the trunks of old trees and cave openings that can surprisingly keep you warm and dry. Most times, you won't see another soul. I'd been there for a few weeks, and aside from the dog walker, I hadn't seen anybody. The weather had taken a bit of a turn, and I was spending more time in a nearby cavern. I could sometimes hear noises from around, what seemed like underneath me. I guess there must have been some sort of tunnel system connecting them, and likely, animals or other wildlife used them, maybe as a sort of nest, or even getting ready to hibernate. I never once considered it, that it might be dangerous. The noises, though, were now beginning to get louder and more frequent. But as it coincided with the great storms and the wind and rain pelting down, the lesser of two evils seemed to be putting up with the weird noises. Now, you might also be wondering if maybe I was starting to go a little crazy. All alone in a dark cave, not much to eat, and if I had not seen what I did with my own two eyes, I think I would have agreed. I had even explored the option of moving, but the one I was holed up in had the most room inside and the smallest opening that I can move in and out of, which meant less chance of rain and cold seeping through. But by no means were caves remotely warm, just warm enough to keep me from freezing to death. So, one evening, it all came to a large crescendo. Not having a watch or nothing, I didn't know exactly what time it was, but it was getting dark, without being pitch black. Not having a watch or nothing, I don't know exactly what time it was, but I can tell you it was getting dark, without being pitch black. I'd hazard a guess, maybe 8 or 9 p.m. The first thing I noticed was the silence, followed closely by the smell. Now, for somebody who had not seen a shower for weeks and used a cave a few doors down for John, well, to say that I noticed that stink will tell you just how bad it was. Then I heard the noise, only it wasn't coming from inside the cave anymore. It was outside, and it sounded like a fight. I'm not gonna lie, the first thing that came to my mind wasn't, I wonder if two messed up abnormalities of nature are out there brawling. I just assumed that maybe a couple of guys had gotten drunk, somehow ending up out here in the woods, and were now having a bar fight, minus the bar. Still, I didn't want to get involved, so I did not leap out and try to intervene. But I did peer out of the mouth of the cave, staying in the shadows so I could see this drunk frat boy fight. And boy, was I wrong. Looking out of the cave, I honestly thought, just for a moment, that I was hallucinating, because what I was seeing couldn't possibly be real. There was indeed a fight going on, a fight to the death, it would seem. But it wasn't a couple of drunk guys. Whatever those things were, they were not people. Best I can describe, they were both the size of a man. Both stood upright on two legs. Both had two arms. Had being the right word, as one of the things now only had one. The other was torn off its body, with lots of blood. If they had been people, they would have been straight out of something like The Hills Have Eyes. Their backs were all deformed and pale white. Both people or beings were butt naked. The palest skin I had ever seen, and it was so tight on their bodies. You could see bones and veins protruding. But their heads were the worst. They were like large deformed melons, like somebody had blown them up and made them twice the size they should be. I didn't see any eyes or a nose, just this creepy pinkish balloon with large gaping circles for a mouth, which looked to be full to the brim with little teeth. They were both covered in wounds, and despite one bleeding like crazy from having its arm just now torn off, they were still fighting for it, screeching horrible noises. I watched in shock and terror, feeling sick to my stomach, as I watched the one with two arms finally bite into the chest of the one which got knocked into the ground. Then, it climbed on top and ripped the one underneath to pieces. It sat and ate. I was holding in my screams, and now crying out of fear. Once it had finished tearing the flesh off this other one, it picked up what was left and crawled back into the cave not too far away. I waited for what seemed like an eternity, and once I could hear those noises underneath me again, I ran all the way out and back into town, which was several miles. I'd rather sleep on the streets or on benches than to ever go back towards there again. I don't know what that thing was, or why they had fought, or even worse, just how many of them were down there in those tunnels, under the caves. Some people call me brave. Others call me stupid. I camp in the deepest woods that I can ever find, where I'm the furthest from people and the closest to everything that can possibly have a taste for human flesh. Don't get me wrong, I take steps to properly protect myself, but I get a thrill from being close to the danger of bears, wolves, and whatever else might be out there in the shady depths with me. It was one particular camping venture when I began to wonder if I was leaning more towards the stupid end of the brave spectrum. I woke up in the early morning hours, before sunrise, feeling that I wasn't alone. Call it a hunch or a sixth sense, but I felt like there were multiple pairs of eyes on me. I peeked outside my tent into a landscape draped in mist, but I could see several shapes standing vigil nearby. Unless my friends had tracked me down while dressed in several wolfish Halloween costumes, I swear that I was looking at humanoid, bipedal wolves of some kind. The closest one having had a few details that I could clearly pick out. The ears were ragged and long, similar to the way a lynx's ears are extended by fur at the tips. The face had a smashed-in shape to it, at least compared to the faces of actual wolves, as if the traits of a Rottweiler had been introduced at some point. The part that made the primal fear begin to roil in my insides was the eyes. They were like embers or candle wicks that had been burning for hours. All of them were points of reddish-orange light, winking in the mist. I counted at least 6 pairs of eyes. I was prepared to deal with normal wolves. I had no idea how I was going to deal with walking, muscle-bound, all too human wolves. I reached for my Glock and prayed that each shot in the magazine had enough stopping power, just in case that there were even more walking wolves than I had thought. I didn't need near as many bullets as I had suspected, but not for the reasons that you would think. The whole world was holding its breath to see what was going to happen first. I felt like I was in a terrible freeze frame of a bad movie, but the standoff was broken by a roar that was so dire so tremendous that the ground shook underneath me. These walking wolves acted surprised. I wasn't sure if it was a good thing or not. And that's when a great shape, like a walking mountain, burst from the trees. It wasn't unlike the smaller shapes surrounding it. It seemed to be more bear than wolf. More like a genetically augmented bear, because this thing probably could have strangled a giraffe. It swatted the man-wolf closest to it, and it was like hitting a furry golf ball with an oversized club. Like a morbid mockery of every cartoon I had ever seen as a kid. The man-wolf howled for the entire fight, landing somewhere over the tops of the trees. This surprise attack did not daunt the other man-wolves. They converged on the larger bear-wolf-like entity, like enraged army ants. One of them jumped on the straight light and began ripping out fistfuls of fur and skin from around the throat. I don't think it planned on the smaller animal being so formidable. This bear-wolf-looking thing grabbed, or rather ripped its attacker from its throat and smashed it into the earth with the palm of its paw. It should have been crushed to bits, but the man-wolf was writhing in pain, still trying to get up. So the bear-wolf thing began beating it into a paste. This meant this creature was leaning down, which the other man-wolves took full advantage of. A sharp, sudden roar announced that the bear-wolf was having an eye bitten out. Smaller man-wolves flew like discarded fleas, slammed into the ground, getting right back up to resume their attack. Both predators were fully distracted, so I didn't miss my chance to take what I thought I could not live without and get out of there. I came out of my tent just in time for one of these things to leap out of the woods and head straight for me. I braced for the end, but it wasn't interested in me. It was beelining for the fight in progress, and I kid you not, I felt the monster's fur brush up against me, and I came very close to messing myself. The tent stayed. It could be replaced, or I could go back for it later. My gun and my survival tools that were thankfully still in my bag, they came with me. I don't recall hearing too many stories about cryptids encountering each other, so there you have it. Make of it what you will. I haven't gone back for the tent yet.